You're not going to make any excuses. You're not going to blame anyone else. You're going to take ownership of whatever happens. And when something goes wrong, instead of pointing fingers and blaming someone else, you're going to take ownership of that problem. You're going to take ownership of figuring out what the solution to that problem is, and you're going to take ownership of implementing that solution. So that is the number one thing that I'm looking for a leader to do, is to take ownership of the problems. And again, we call that extreme ownership. And it was one of those things that was very easy to see in a SEAL platoon, because when someone doesn't take ownership and starts pointing fingers and blaming, I'm pointing the finger at you, you're pointing the finger at someone else, and now we have no one taking ownership of the problems, and therefore the problems never get solved.
But here's the dilemma: to attack the problem but not the person. Now see, that's a challenge. To show somebody that you love them but you hate. How do you put love and hate in the same sentence? I'm telling you, it is essential to show your contempt for the problem and your concern for the value. These are not easy skills. You don't walk these summits of intellectual thought and word choice and emotional content and precision. You don't learn these overnight. But your commitment to excellence in communications can make all the difference in the world in how your economic and social and personal world works out.
So what makes you a leader is you can make the tough decisions. And what makes you a leader is you make the decision. What makes you a great leader is, I may be wrong, but if I have to wait till everything's resolved, nothing's going to get resolved. So I'm going to make a decision. If I make a decision and it's wrong, I'll find out quicker than if I sit on the fence while my life goes by. I remember I've shared this with maybe a few of you before, but years and years ago when we had the big Gulf War, General Norman Schwarzkopf's a friend of mine, who passed away a few years ago. And I used to bring him in to talk about leadership. And one of the first times I ever asked him, I said, how do you define leadership? How do you know when a person's really a leader? And he said, when they can make decisions. And he said, I can remember when he was an assistant to a general, and I forget what the exact position is, but he said he was responsible for reading all the briefs. And this general is one of the highest generals in the Army. And there was a decision that needed to be made. It had to do with 10 years of going back and forth with the Pentagon, trying to figure out if they're going to go one direction or another. It was a gigantic decision that was going to affect the way the Army was structured, how money was going to be divided, what resources are going to go where. And he said they brought in this group of 20 people in, and they had this 2-hour meeting, and everybody got up and pitched their side of what they thought was right. And at the end, when it was completely done, the general said, has everyone said their piece? He said, yes. He said, do this.
Improving as a leader, I think it's not only a necessity, but it'll really just fix a lot of the problems that we have across the country and the world. Meaning, evolving ourselves as a leader will fix these problems. I see toxic leadership in a lot of different places, and I feel like it's a result of leaders failing to grow and improve. In fact, I would argue one of the strongest traits of a poor leader is what I call ignorant incompetence, meaning that he or she chooses to remain incompetent. There's that saying, ignorance is bliss, right? Well, I feel like a lot of people, a lot of leaders choose and would rather live in ignorance rather than confront their weaknesses and evolve.
And you, as a human being, are going to get certain characteristics that are going to make you a good leader, and you're going to lack some characteristics that would make you a good leader if you had them. You don't get 10s across the board. It's like the little video games you see kids play where you get a 9 in strength and a 7 in intellect and an 8 in dexterity. And you get those too as a leader, and you don't get all 10s. So some leadership characteristics that make you a good leader, for instance, obviously it's good to be articulate. If you can express your message clearly to people, that's gonna help you from a leadership perspective. If you have some natural charisma, that's gonna help you from a leadership perspective. If you can look at complex problems and you can simplify them, that's gonna be helpful as a leader, because that's what you're doing. So if you're persuasive, there's all kinds of things that will help you as a leader, and you're not gonna be good at all of them. And so as a leader, if you look at the ones that you're weak at, you can improve them. That's what's beneficial. So you can't take someone that's just a horrible leader and make them into an amazing leader, but you can take someone that's a decent leader and you can make them into a very good or even an exceptional leader, because you can definitely get more articulate. You can definitely get more comfortable speaking to people. You can definitely get more precise at taking very complex problems and simplifying them so that your team can understand what it is that needs to get done. So these are all things that you can improve upon. And I always have to close this out by saying that there are some people that cannot become better leaders. And the people that cannot become better leaders are the people that can't put their ego in check. They lack humility. And those people, they think they're doing everything great. So they're not going to improve as leaders. You can't coach them. You can't convince them. They think they're perfect, and they're going to stay where they are from a leadership perspective.